Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Profluence Sports. I got an exciting one today. Obviously, we have a lot of investors on and a lot of founders, but trying to also tap into the execs and people doing cool stuff. So we have Matt today from Comcast joining us. So, Matt, appreciate you hopping on and excited to roll into this one.
Yeah, I'm excited. Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it.
And, not to bring this to the public light too, but, a lot of people on the back end have said there's great wisdom. So no pressure today, but, we're excited to hear some unique topics. So everyone tuning in now, make sure you listen for the full thing.
I appreciate you talking to my mother and father. That was very nice of you.
Beautiful. Well, Matt, I guess give us the high level, minute. Who are you? What are you working on? Just so people have some context before we start getting into the nitty gritty of everything you got rolling these days.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So I currently get the honor of being the Vice President of Brand Partnerships and Engagement here at Comcast. Comcast is the name of our company. The majority of my work focuses on our Xfinity brand, which is obviously our residential go-to-market brand for our traditional TV services, but also our internet, mobile, and home security. And at the end of the day, my job and my team's job is to take the Xfinity brand and relevantly place it into popular culture. And so that is where the brand partnership team comes into place, which is what are those partners that are relevant to our brand and product set that we can draft off of the fan engagement, interest in to grow our brand and business. And the majority of that, is in sports, which is why we're here today. But we have done things in the music space. We have done things in the video gaming space as well, because those are also areas of relevant partnership opportunities.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the context. And, without beating around the bush, just going to go right into sort of something off the top of my head that's interesting to me and probably a lot of others. But obviously Comcast has Comcast Sports Tech, and you've done a lot of stuff. We had Jenna on and all that. Like, where do you fit into this as well? Like, are you sort of the part of a liaison between like the Xfinity or NASCAR and some of these partnerships, and then into that? Or I guess give everyone some context, especially for the folks building companies, because I'm sure they're always trying to figure out sort of how it all works and flows.
Yeah, great question. And we're a very obviously large organization with multiple brands, so it does get complex. But ultimately, I sit in the marketing organization on the Xfinity side, which I think is probably the right starting point for our role. Taking even one step further back, if you think about Comcast, there are two divisions within our organization. There is the content and experience side. So that is NBC Sports, Peacock, theme parks, films, etc. And then there is the connectivity and platform side. And that is where Xfinity, Comcast Business, Sky from an international standpoint, sit. And we are chartered to sell our products and services into homes, businesses across the country, and in the case of Sky, across the world. Now, when you go into the brand partnership space, which is a relatively new group, this is not a team. I often say I didn't take somebody's job. We created this organization organically over the last 12 or 13 years. I've been here 19 years, and candidly, when I started, I noticed that there was not a corporate-led partnership or sports marketing group. And I actually remember telling the woman who interviewed me for the job that I took that my goal was to get in the door and create this organization, because I could see that it was a needed thing. I could see that it was relevant to to our brand. What we've done, which is why you were sort of asking the question on Comcast Sports Tech, is we've realized that brand partnerships, and by the way, I say in partnerships, sponsorships, they're synonymous in our world. That the value that we have as a company goes well beyond just buying signage and IP rights and all of those things. Important, grows the brand, creates awareness, engagement, all of those things. But we have such just a plethora of assets at our disposal across the company that we have the ability to provide value back to our partners as well. So we are excited to be proud partners of the San Francisco 49ers as an example. But we're also very happy that the 49ers are proud customers of Comcast across multiple lines. We've taken that philosophy, across all of our brand partnerships, really following kind of the beverage model, right? You see a Coke sign, you're not getting a Pepsi at that stadium, and vice versa. And then where sports tech comes in, where I've been able to work with, Jenna, who was a previous guest, is now we have another set of cohorts and technology that we can bring to our partners that are different and unique, that's kind of unexpected from a Comcast perspective, but provides value again to the property on why they're partnering with us. And so there's been a few opportunities there. I look at somebody like a Plantiga, who I think was in Jenna's second or third cohort of sports tech, which is essentially tracking, athlete movement to improve their performance. We took it and integrated it into NASCAR with our 2311 relationship, and integrated Plantiga into their pit crew work so that they can analyze, I'm making this up, was the right rear tire, carrier, should he have stepped over the wall with his right foot or left foot first, and was his steps correct? So, a lot of people who have, who are in sponsorship organizations within companies, they're chartered with buying sponsorships and activating those sponsorships. We do that as well. But our measurement on what's a good deal or not a good deal is that, plus the ability to drive our brand and businesses through those sponsorships.
Yeah, and it's super helpful context. I appreciate you going through all of that and in such a clear way as well. Now, when you think of new partners, right? Like a lot of yours are long-standing, which is good, but and I'm asking this question with like my third person, point of view on of someone going, okay, this is great, right? You work with NASCAR, all right, maybe you're coming in doing some stuff with Plantiga, but as you guys are evaluating new things across the whole Comcast Xfinity, right? Wherever it fits within a large organization, what are you looking at there? And then I do have a follow-up. I don't want to like get too ahead of myself, but I'm just curious as you guys are evaluating new things. For example, like it looks like you have a lot more esports probably of late, and then unrivaled women's basketball looks like there's something cooking there, right? So how are you evaluating new things and trying to get in them early? So then it is like a 12-year, 11-year, whatever it is, NASCAR relationship, but for the new wave.
Yeah, those lengthy relationships are few and far between. The majority of our portfolio sits in that traditional 3 to 5 year relationship. Some of the larger national ones that have, are coterminous in some cases with our friends at NBC. Those are the ones that set up for those longer terms. But to go back to your question, for us, this is where my Xfinity responsibility hat comes on first, right? So that's our charter. That's what my group is chartered to do. So to answer your question on how we look at things, we look at it based on the audience. And so as an example, the NBA, we just recently announced that we are a partner with the NBA, the WNBA. And the entire reason why I think that there's extreme value in that relationship isn't because necessarily the stature of being an NBA partner, which is great. It isn't necessarily being part of massive moments in sports culture, All-Star Game, Finals, Draft. That's great. It's the audience. And that's what we looked at first. And in the example of the NBA, it's a young, diverse, social-first, digital-savvy audience that sets up perfectly with where our growth opportunities are.
And before you go any further, how are you evaluating that? How are you going? We know.
Yeah, we have multiple sources of third parties, own data to take a look and analyze that data. Then, Andrew, what we'll do is we'll take a look at it and go, well, that's great. Does that align with where our growth opportunities are? And in this case, yes, it is. And then the second thing that we'll do is we'll take a look at the larger portfolio as a whole and say, where are we? And so we have a product set that's extremely important to young, old, urban, rural. It spans everything. And what I don't want is to have a portfolio of assets that's specifically and hyper-focused only in one. But when we take a step back and look at our broader portfolio, and we'll work just on the national level, right? We have our Team USA relationship. Candidly, has just sort of a mass appeal, but has a little bit actually skewing of older, population. You have the NBA side, young, diverse. You have the WWE relationship that we have, which candidly is surprisingly everybody. It's an amazing audience that's in the WWE. And then we have our gaming space. And these are our big national, and NASCAR as well. These are our big national bets. And what we'll do on the secondarily side on the audience is look at that and go, all right, check. We've got young properties, older properties, urban properties, rural properties, properties that over-index in the multicultural segment. We look at it as a one single portfolio and go, are we reaching that wide span of customers that our brand and business requires? And so the NBA coming on board was a perfect complement to the NASCAR audience, right? And you traditionally think of NASCAR, yes, it skews a little bit older, it skews a little more rural. The NBA is in the exact opposite thing. So it's not a matter of like saying that the NASCAR side is not as important. That's an important audience for us. But now by adding the NBA to that portfolio, it actually complements the gaps that we have in our portfolio.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And how do you look at like internet? Like, do you focus mainly like how are you viewing like both data like internationally as well, or are you guys just so focused?
Yeah, we're focused domestically. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're a domestic focused brand.
Because I was just
Our
gonna go
site.
sort of like how do you like cricket is starting to like seep its way into the U.S. and North
Yeah.
America as a whole, and obviously, I mean, it's the second most popular sport in the world and huge in Southeast Asia. Like, I was just wondering, like, if you position yourselves at all for like the next wave of sports and entertainment at
Yeah,
all, or how you're thinking.
100% we do. I'll go to soccer as an example
Okay.
there, right? Because I think, you know, globally, soccer, number one most popular sport. You can go through all of the metrics, completely understand that. Domestically growing. When you look at youth participation, you see soccer and basketball kind of rising. From a property and a sponsorship standpoint in the states, candidly limited. Not in terms of the number, but in terms of the reach, of it from like an MLS perspective. They do great things, but like there are other properties that give you more reach. But this is the beauty of our company, which is we have other tenants to pull on to create engagement with soccer fans. So as an example, what we launched back in August is actually a video offering that aggregates all of the different providers out there that provide soccer, content. So Apple TV with MLS, Peacock with, Premier League. There's a handful of the Fox Sports, nets that do it. We aggregated all of that and created a World Soccer ticket. And it's thousands of soccer games throughout the course of the year. It'll be a big part, of your World Cup experience. So our ability to engage with fans as well as find out where the puck is going, not where the puck is in the world of sports. It doesn't always have to be on the sponsorship standpoint. It could be on the product standpoint, the packaging standpoint, the promotional standpoint. And so then when we have that type of thing in place, then we can go and complement it with experiential and partnership, things. So we have Weston McKinney as an example, is a member of our talent roster, who's going to be on the USA men's soccer teams. Now we can use Weston to talk about World Soccer Ticket. We have a relationship with EA FC. Our brand is embedded in there. That allows us to talk and engage with soccer fans in a relevant manner without necessarily doing what would be a traditional sponsorship of a team or a league.
And we've talked a lot about Comcast side. Curious how the brands are they evolving at all? How are they thinking about things, or even the athletes, right? Like we just to give a few examples, like a lot of athletes have started, and this doesn't fit for Comcast, but started thinking about, hey, how do I take equity in some of my sponsorship deals and not just cash? Like I'm curious, like how some of the big sponsors, like has that evolved over your time period at Comcast too? Like how are they viewing things now as the world's changing?
When you say sponsors, you mean the people that we're sponsoring, the property
Yeah,
side, of the
the
house?
flip side, like putting yourselves in their shoes. Like how are they thinking about the space as a whole, and has that evolved or changed at all?
Yeah, it's evolved a lot. Not necessarily on the equity side. You're right. That's a little bit of a whole different sort of
Yeah, yeah.
area. I think there's probably two areas that I would point to that I've noticed a change in over the times that we've been here. One is I think the team side specifically has gotten really good in understanding that the assets that they can offer to a sponsor. And I reflect on a conversation we had a team where we actually used this line, which is like, we're not interested in the brick and mortar sponsorship, right? You're as an example, you're an NFL team. And if you want to oversell your sign in the venue, when you also tell me that only 4% of your overall fan base actually attends a live game every year, right? That's not, I'm not interested in that. So where I'm going with that is I think the properties got really good at saying, no, we've got an ability to reach fans. Yes, in the venue, yes, on the couch, and yes, on the phone. And the more that people can do that for a brand like us, that's where we want to be. We want to be connecting with consumers wherever they are. And I would say, 15 years ago or so, when we kind of started building this partnership group, it was a lot of like marquee signage, parking, gate branding. Fine, all of those things are good. I'm not a brand necessarily that needs local market awareness, so some of those things drive that. But where they've gotten good at is, no, let me take you outside of the venue. Let me give you the full view from the couch or from the scroll of the thumb. That's one. On the athlete side, and it's probably more so in certain sports than others. Basketball is definitely one. The athletes are brands themselves. And so, and in many cases, the property is able to get us some connection to those brands, but also working directly with athletes. It has become so much more on their side less about taking a check. For the record, they'll take a check. but it has been about how do they work with brands that are going to support their goals and efforts, that are going to put them in the light publicly that they're looking to do, that are aligned with their values as well. And candidly, as a sponsor, those are the best partnerships. When I've got an engaged talent that understands the power of working with Comcast and what we can provide, it's a 1+1=3 type of relationship for both us and the talent themselves as well. So I would dare say, I think that both sides of the house, the sponsor side of the house, the property side of the house, and the athlete side of the house, is actually getting really much smarter than they've been, because they understand that the old days of here's a sign, everybody sits on the couch and watches the sports, those days are done. But that's not a bad thing. It's an opportunistic thing.
Yeah. How does so we call it, internet version 3 or whatever, right? And you really have seen the whole progression, which is super cool, but going from really, like you said, just in person to then some TV, then computers, then phones, and sort of now it's at this weird, does it go like a little more AR, VR? Obviously AI is playing into this, and I'm leaving this broad, but like, how do you see what's the next wave, or where's the next, major points for you guys, and then maybe just even insights you have across the space, whether it relates directly to what you're working on or not, that you find fascinating?
Yeah, I think I've always taken the approach on this evolution of media as an opportunity, especially in the sports world. All it's doing is just opening up different areas for brands to engage with fans if they understand it correctly, if they get themselves involved, not necessarily early, but in a relevant manner. There are brands that do things just for the sake of doing them, and they're cool. I don't think that's the right approach here. But whatever the next evolution of how fans are consuming the game, the key thing is still, to me, two things. One is access for the fan, right? And how are they getting their content? Like, I think about, if you go back, probably 25, 30 years ago, right, when social media began to take off in the sports space, I think one of the smartest things the NBA did was to say, we are not price gating our highlights. We want everybody to get out there and see it. We do not want to put this behind a paywall whatsoever, because we want people to have access. Some of the sports that didn't do that put things behind a paywall, are probably feeling the impact of that in relation to some of these other sports, because they did not give that access. So I think access is key. I think the second thing that's really important that we're seeing a lot of it post-COVID, is the importance of the live experience, both in terms of how I consume the game, where I consume the game, and the experience that surrounds that, whether I'm sitting on the couch, whether I'm sitting on a train watching on the phone, or whether candidly I'm going into an arena to watch the game. The expectation of the live experience from an engagement standpoint has changed dramatically, right? The idea of sitting in a venue and not having connectivity was probably something that everybody was 10, 15 years ago. Yeah, okay, large arena, I get it. Kind of can't make a call, can't connect. Absolutely not. In fact, when we just launched the Xfinity Mobile Arena here in Philadelphia, it wasn't about putting the big, beautiful purple signs on the building. They look great. It was about making sure that every single person that walked in there, every call could work, every text could work, and every ability to capture a piece of highlight and content, whether that's a concert or a Flyers game, and share it, had to work. And that's not a tech thing. That's a live experience thing that technology fuels. So I think everything that you sort of mentioned as you were rattling off different ways things have changed over the past few years, points to access, and it points to the live experience being the best possible experience it can be. And you're right. I'm in my 19th year here at Comcast. My first couple of years, it was all about driving cable subscriptions and strategically using sports to do that. Still important. We'd still love to do it. But the beauty of what we've built here across all of our brands is that however you connect or however you engage with sports, one of, if not all of our brands can be a relevant touch point in that experience.
Super cool. Yeah, you need to build that into Penn State. I don't know if you've ever gone to a Penn State football game, but
I haven't been there recently.
Throw your phone away if you want to try it. It's worth it.
I can confirm that we're not a partner of Penn State, so maybe they should give us a call for some help.
Maybe they should, yeah. Now it's interesting. Now, how have you seen any artificial intelligence? Let me actually go back a step before I lead to this. When Web3 crypto blockchain was really taking off, like 2019, 2021, we saw a ton of money, a ton of partners, a ton of those groups come into sports. Now I would argue artificial intelligence is even more real and applicable. You have the open AIs and NVIDIAs, and we can name 50 more off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
yeah, yeah.
But haven't really seen them like do too much in sports or entertainment. Like I think I saw the first, and I don't watch a ton of TV, so I'm probably a bad example of this. But like I saw the first, it was Perplexity, and then ChatGPT, OpenAI. I saw the first two commercials, and I'm like, how did it take this long? Like I thought I
Yeah,
was using this
yeah,
4 or 5 years ago.
Copilot. I saw a Copilot commercial last
Copilot,
night.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
How do you see that them entering the space? Where do you see that? Like, what's the next big sponsorship side, and how are you guys approaching that at Comcast?
All right, so I'm going to step out of kind of my role when I answer
Yeah,
this
yeah.
question, and I think and I know what you're going to begin to see is properties look at that category of AI as a sales opportunity, for them. There's no doubt. I think it's really funny that you said that artificial intelligence feels more real than the other stuff.
Yeah.
Like that juxtaposition of artificial and real, but it is real. Um, I think what you're going to begin to see, and we've got some big moments in sports coming up over the next couple of years, whether it be what's going to happen in February with the Super Bowl and the Olympics all happening at the same time. We've got the World Cup, and we're really not that far away from the LA 28 games. I think you're going to begin to see an influx of money from those AI organizations into, I'll say sports. I don't know whether it'll go sports media, i.e., buying spots and dots and those types of things, or whether that's going to go into a traditional sponsorship stuff. But I can tell you, I know properties are interested in opening up the AI category to sell against, and it'll be an interesting thing to see some of these big pocket companies and whether or not they play
Yeah,
in that area or not.
big money. And I know they're spending a lot on data centers, and I say AI, but having a lot of conversations with people that are much smarter in the space than me, they often go, well, I don't like the word AI. They're really just like, I forget what they call it, like learning knowledge-based modules. Like
Yeah,
there's large
that's a
language.
marketing positioning of the
Yeah,
service. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. But I've been surprised that there hasn't been big money flowing in because it seems like your exact type of consumers, whether old, any age demographic, it's like, oh, I can make a recipe. I think that was a commercial I saw. It's like, oh, I can just say, hey, I want a recipe. I'm like, this
yeah,
seems like the perfect place to hit every demographic you would
yeah.
want. And it just felt lagged. And maybe that's just the case of me being way ahead of trends, which I need to be. But also, it's interesting. So
I think
yeah,
it's an interesting thing. If you think about, oh gosh, again, good dating myself years ago. When Google first launched search, they created a couple of really compelling ads out there that would make any audience feel comfortable using Google search, and they positioned it in a way in terms of how this benefited your life and how easy it was. I do think that there's a fear of some. Let's say still fear a little bit older than me, but that AI is a fearful thing and that it is taking all your jobs and all of these types of things. But I think there'll be some interesting things. That Recipe One, the Copilot spot, I can't remember, that launched last night, showed an ease and a benefit and actually the way it complements your life. And I think when people can figure out how do they position that correctly to, again, going back to the idea of being young, old, urban, rural, making sure that it's got that wide sort of swath across board, I think you'll see more. And I think whoever does it first and best is going to have that first leader advantage from a mass marketing perspective.
yeah, it's interesting. I'm curious to see how it plays out. From the Comcast lens or your personal lens, Matt, I always like to close out. What else has you excited across sports, media, entertainment? What else do you have your eye on? You mentioned when you came into Comcast, you're like, hey, there's this wide open position, even with our own thing I needed to create. Where do you have sort of eyes or trends you're watching across the space, whether through Comcast lens or your personal?
Yeah, I mean, through our lens, obviously, we're rolling off of our 11-year NASCAR relationship over the next from a NASCAR Xfinity series within
And what
two
an
weeks.
incredible! I went to Daytona 500 this year. It was the first.
Oh, awesome!
The NASCAR team had us out. It was awesome, amazing experience. So shout out those guys.
Yeah,
But yeah, it was my first one. What an incredible! Not to sidetrack you, but what an incredible experience. I'm a fan now. I'm a NASCAR fan. I think TV can, like we're talking about a lot, but like there is also always something to the in person when you feel it and you see. I mean, obviously I had a better experience. I got to drive on the thing and
Yeah,
meet the
yeah.
driver, but it's like when you feel it, you're like, oh, this is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Well, look, you're talking to a kid who grew up on Long Island, New York, NASCAR, not a NASCAR hotbed. And I had the same exact story. I went to my first race in the Coca-Cola 600 in 2000, and I became a fan ever since. And then when the opportunity to kind of be part of a long-term partnership with it came along, it's just only grown my fandom. But you're right. Again, to that point, like they have done a really good job of marrying the live experience to the access point. And by the way, I know you said you got a special experience, but you probably walked around and saw a ton of fans walking around the garage and on the pits right before the race started. Anytime I bring somebody new, I just brought some friends a couple weeks ago to a race, and he was blown away like how close it is. I'm like, yeah, this is like you're on the field in right field stretching with Aaron Judge before the game. Like this is the access to it. So rolling off of that one from the NASCAR Xfinity Series and closing that, and that's been so great for our brand and our business over the 11 years. And I'm just so proud of the team that we got a chance to work with both here internally with the NASCAR group and with the drivers across the board. So, our final race in the Xfinity Series will be in 2 weeks, and there's some pride and some emotion on that rolling off. But that'll be something that we're looking at. For me, from the Xfinity brand and the Comcast brand perspective, what's going to happen in February from a sports perspective is going to be absolutely amazing, right? So if you step back and think about from an NBC perspective, the Winter Olympics will launch on a Thursday. Of course, we are proud Team USA partners on the Xfinity side. The Super Bowl is that Sunday. And then you go back to the Olympics. And then, by the way, the next weekend, the NBA All-Star Game returns to NBC. We're a sponsor of the NBA as well from an Xfinity brand perspective. I think that moment in February, that legendary February from a sports perspective, is going to be really fascinating to watch the behavior of consumers from a broadcast and a streaming. Obviously, all of those things will be on Peacock as well. I really do think that this is going to be a moment in time from a viewership standpoint to kind of return to the mass appeal that sports has. And I know the NBC guys are working so hard to make sure each of those experiences, not just first class, but the best ever. And I think our brand has an opportunity to be a really big part of that moment. And I look at it as a launch pad right into the World Cup, which is just a few months, after that. So I think, to the question of what have I got my eyes on, I think it's just always staying ahead of the consumption trend. Where and how are consumers, not just sports, but gaming? You mentioned esports. We do a lot in that space. How are they engaging with their gaming group? And then just staying on top of the ever-evolving audience. And now with all this media fragmentation, there's an audience on Peacock. What do they look like? There's an audience on broadcast. What do they look like? There's an audience who are digital social first, like yourself, a non-TV watcher, but still a sports fan. Like, how are you engaging with content? And our approaches as marketer needs to be tailored to each of those different platforms and different audiences. That's just going to keep us busy.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that perspective. And yeah, I mean, really the only TV I think as most people is sports that I watch. And, it's...
That's why that live experience is crucial.
Yeah, and I hate to even say this, but like it's also when you're working, I'm sure you feel the same way a little, Matt. Like, and maybe everyone else on this, not everyone else listening will see some of Matt's team, but when you work in sports, sometimes it's a little tough to go all day and then be like, oh, more sports. But you see how much you really love it sometimes.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, I fall into that trap a lot at night in terms of, all right, I think I'm tapped out. Probably doesn't help being a New York Giants fan or a New York Yankees fan right now because I'm okay not watching some of that.
Yeah. But good stuff, Matt, and really appreciate you coming on. These are great insights, and I'm sure everyone got a lot out of it. So thanks for your time, and this was great.
Yeah, appreciate it. Best of luck to you and Profluence, and thank you so much for having me here.
Of course.